Kirsten Weld is a professor of history at Harvard University. She is also president of the Harvard chapter of the American Association of University Professors. Kirsten, you've studied authoritarian regimes and you've drawn comparisons between those and the actions of the Trump administration. Tell us what made you make that link.
Thanks for having me. To my eye, it's less about the nature of the regime and more about the kinds of tactics used by anti-democratic movements once they're able to seize power, regardless of how it is that they take power, whether it's at the ballot box or through some, more outrageously anti-democratic fashion. So what do you do when you come to power and you want to shut down sources of opposition to your administration rather than welcoming debate, rather than permitting dissent? You always go after the same sectors. You go after the free press, you go after the judiciary, and you go after universities, which are famously and historically centers of free speech and critical inquiry that folks who embrace authoritarian methods do not like because they want to shut those things down. So whether we're looking at historical examples from interwar Europe or the kinds of regimes and historical phenomena that I've studied in Latin America during the Cold War years, or whether we're looking around at our own world today at Putin's Russia, or Modi's India, or Orban's Hungary, and now Trump's United States, we see the same thing. Concerted attacks to muzzle the press, to control the judiciary, control the independence of the judiciary, and efforts to shut down universities. And that's what we're seeing play out at Harvard right now.
Okay, now, as you know, a judge has now blocked Trump's plan to stop Harvard from enrolling foreign students. Does that give you any reason for optimism?
Yes, in a qualified sense, in that it's a clear sign of confirmation from a judge that, a ruling that was issued very quickly, saying that Harvard's legal complaint seems likely to succeed on the merits, and therefore granting Harvard's request for a temporary restraining order, which will be in effect for about 2 weeks. But the fate of the thousands of international students who are affiliated with Harvard remains uncertain. And so the stress and anxiety that all of those students and scholars are feeling right now is paused, but it's not been eliminated. Because we still don't know what will happen. The Trump administration has already shown itself perfectly willing to disregard judicial injunctions, judicial orders, when those orders do not suit its intentions. And so we have reason to believe that the courts alone are not necessarily going to be able to stop in every aspect this coordinated, multi-pronged attack on our university. But it is the first and most important place to start. And the fact that we've already gotten confirmation that a judge thinks that what the federal government is trying to do needs to be put on hold is a very encouraging sign.
And in the meantime, I'm wondering if there is a chilling effect on campus and whether that extends to campuses elsewhere.
Oh, absolutely. That's the purpose of this. The revocation of Harvard's certification to enroll international students quite openly does not have any relationship to anything that Harvard has actually done or anything that's occurred on Harvard's campus. The Secretary of Homeland Security said outright, this is a warning to all other colleges and universities across the country. And the goal of it is to make the price of speaking up, of standing up against the Trump administration, too dear to bear for any institution that isn't as well resourced as Harvard. So the idea is to chill resistance across the whole higher education sector, not only at our university. And the chilling effects have been unfolding in response not only to this threatened revocation of Harvard's ability to enroll international students, which has been kind of working its way through the pipeline for the last few weeks, but has been settling in since the Trump administration returned to office in January. We have seen international students be arrested by masked men and shoved into unmarked cars and flown on airplanes to detention centers in Louisiana for the purported crime of authoring an op-ed in the student newspaper criticizing the university's investments in Israeli corporations. We have seen pro-Palestinian protesters being picked up off the streets for their constitutionally protected speech and whisked away from their families. So all of that has been chilling the speech and the advocacy of international students and scholars on campuses across the United States for several months now. This is the latest and most extreme salvo in a campaign of intimidation designed to silence international students and scholars that's been unfolding all spring.
And so, Kirsten, what then do you think the long-term effect of these executive orders by the Trump administration is likely to be?
Well, the trouble is that I think Harvard will succeed in the courts. My own chapter of the American Association of University Professors has also filed several lawsuits over the last couple of months in which I think we're likely to succeed in securing injunctive relief. The actions of the Trump administration are patently illegal. They are unconstitutional in a variety of ways. But the problem is that as those cases wind their way through the courts, irreparable harms are already being done today, things that cannot be undone. Several billion dollars of federal funding to Harvard-based researchers has already been cut off, and that means that valuable biomedical samples are already being destroyed. Years-long research partnerships are being torn apart. International students and scholars are unsure of whether or not they're going to be able to design the kinds of multi-year research programs that are essential for doing critical, cutting-edge academic inquiry. And so, everything has been kind of thrown into disarray and question, and there's just an immense waste of people's resources, people's time, people's energy, and all in the service of what? It's not to make higher education better. It's not to make this country stronger. It's incredibly self-defeating. It is a nakedly partisan ideological attack that is simply designed to bolster the power of a small cabal of would-be autocrats who happen to currently be in control of the US government. And we have to do everything in our power, whether that's in the courts or in the streets, to make it stop.
And lastly, you're Canadian, but you've been living in the US for 20 years. How surprised are you at what's happening in the US with respect to higher education?
It's very surprising. I can't say it's not surprising to actually experience it. Certainly, I didn't anticipate staying in the United States for 20 years when I first came here as an international student on an F1 visa in 2004. As a historian, of course, I can look around the world at a whole variety of contexts in which we've seen campaigns like this of really sort of state violence against institutions, against ideas, against critical inquiry, against independent thought, against dissent. But it's nevertheless really shocking to actually have to go through it. And at Harvard University, this university is older than the United States itself. It's the oldest continuously existing corporation in the Western Hemisphere. And so to see the federal government take a hatchet to it in this incredibly ham-fisted and capricious and corrupt way it's truly astonishing. And I will tell you that when I first saw just yesterday word that the Department of Homeland Security was indeed revoking Harvard's ability to enroll international students, I quite literally felt the air go out of my lungs. I felt like I had been winded, like I was grasping to catch my breath, because even though we thought this was coming, even though this was threatened and forewarned, threatening is one thing, and actually seeing it happen is another. And I can tell you, it is just it's just been devastating. The moment that news update came through on my phone just started blowing up with messages from my international students asking me questions that I had no answers to about whether they should get on that plane back to their home country, whether they'd be able to come back and continue their doctoral studies in the fall. And so I'm very pleased now that with this restraining order, I can say, look, let's do our best to continue as we were to maintain the continuity of your studies, of your pursuit of ideas, of your dreams that you've worked for so many years. But that is cold comfort in an environment in which we're designed to feel that everything that we once thought was solid is suddenly up for grabs. And so it's a very frightening moment, even as I do think that the university is going to prevail in the courts just because these attacks are so patently unlawful.
Well, you are certainly dealing with a lot. We thank you for your time and your insights today.
Thanks very much for having me.